Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Delana and today we're going to talk about string blocks. I've got a confession to make. They're not really my thing, I think. They're not my thing to sew into a complete quilt. For me, I need somewhere for the eye to rest. But I have a lot of strings and I like to work outside of my comfort zone a little bit, and I have had some ideas about what I can do to make these work for me, for the kind of quilter sewer I am. So I'm going to just do a little demonstration today, how I organize my scraps and how I put together the block. What I'm using, because I'm sewing it onto newspaper. Not everybody does it this way, but I thought I would try it this way because that's how my great-grandmother used to sew. She used to use newspaper. So I'm kind of getting a little bit back to my roots. Oh, and I have a string quilt from my great-grandmother that she gave to me, and that's maybe a video for another time. If you would like to see that quilt, I warn you, it's been loved so much, but if you'd like to see that quilt, let me know. So I think that's really about it for like an intro. I'm going to show you next how I kind of organize my strips, and then how I step by step how I put a block together, and then I probably won't take up any more of your time today for this time, and I'll be back later with some more ideas about what I'm going to do with these and maybe what you can, because I'm thinking outside the box here. So let's get started. Organization. So I got my strips out and they were a jumbled mess, and I just organized them very quickly. I didn't fuss about it. I didn't overthink anything. I just kind of put really light kind of background fabrics. Maybe that's not one, but you know, it's kind of iffy, that one. Background fabrics, light fabrics, and so these are the longest ones. I know they'll go across the width of fabric, and then they get a little bit shorter, and you know, this is a little longer than that one, but it's okay. And the same thing over here. This will go with the fabric. I think these will too. And then it gets, these are folded, they look shorter, but they go progressively shorter, and then these are shorter, and they actually, in fact, just get shorter at the end because I was running out of room. And then I saved odd shapes for trying to fix the corners. You don't necessarily need to use a strip for that. If you've just got a weird shape like that, it can cover your corners for you. Okay, the strips are stretchy, so the shorter the narrower they are, even though you're sewing them to paper or something, you're going to have to be careful if they get really thin, like 1 inch. Personally, for me, I wouldn't do that, and I want to make sure that I get at least a 1/4 inch in the seam allowance, because strips will ravel on you, and it doesn't take much for some material to just start raveling. I can just find the strips. It just makes it a little bit quicker when I want to start just sitting at the machine and sewing. But I will be honest, within 2 or 3 strips in, all of this is not going to look like that anymore. It's going to be another tangled mess. But okay, it still works, and it's still petting fabric, so that's fine as well too. We like that. We like to do that. Right. Let's go put some blocks together. So I cut my squares at 10 inches. That was my thinking, and I thought 10 inches is like a layer cake size, so I can do a lot with that if I wanted to cut it up and use it for something else. So I put them on diagonally, and then you're going to put the next one down. Now see, they bow, they just do. I just kind of wiggle them in there. I set my stitch length down about 1.9 to 2. I have a Bernina, so that's what it says to me. And then I sew quite dense, and I leave at least a 1/4 inch in the seam. So I sew down here, and then when I'm finished here, and I start more than a 1/4 inch up here, and that's fine because that's where you want your thread tangle to get started, because you really can't chain piece these. So you start here, and when you trim the block down, all that little tangled bit of thread that when you start sewing, that happens with your sewing machine, you'll just cut that out. And you get down to the end, and then when I'm sitting at the sewing machine, I'll just turn it. I cut my thread, I turn it, and then just pretend like I've sewed this on. I flip this out of the way, and I take another strip, I make sure it's long enough, I start well away from a 1/4 inch so I know I can cut that little knot out. I go down with my small stitch length of 1.9 or 2, and I come all the way down past where I'm going to cut off at the end. And then I will go to the ironing board, and I set my seams, and then I press open. If you don't know what I mean by setting your seams, I'm going to leave a link below to a really good video from a woman named Karen Brown. Her channel is Just Get It Done Quilts, and she's got a really good ironing video, so I'll link that in my description below. This is what it's going to look like. So I put this one right side up, this one right side down, I sewed, I moved it out of the way, I did the same here, took it to my ironing board, and ironed it open. I'm going to do that one again. I'm going to set it aside so I don't forget. And you continue. So that was the center, that was the first trip to the ironing board, pressing these two open. This has been the second trip to the ironing board. Now I've got this one here because I wanted to show you that I have a lot of this pink, and I have a lot of this pink in the same width. So I've decided that I don't want a big strip of pink on all my blocks, so I've sewed this in a little bit. What I've done is I just moved it over and I sewed it down. So I'm just showing you that you can have more than a 1/4 inch in your seam. Now if this was white material and I had black back here, I would probably take my scissors and go along here and trim it off. But by the time I get my next seam in here, you're not really going to see much of that anyway, where that stops and starts. It's not showing through. It doesn't bother me. I'm going to leave it. Now, it starts getting a little tricky when you get this far along, because thread's everywhere, right? Because you've got your corners here that you need to kind of like audition your fabrics for. What I mean by that is, if I were to take a strip this wide and put it on there, that would be fine. I'd still have to add another strip to that. And that's okay. You can do that perfectly. I could also try to take a wider strip, but then, let's see. Let's say your strip is just going to cover your corner here. That's not going to work at all. Let's say all you had was kind of strips that would just stop here, and then you're going to probably have a seam inside your seam allowance when you put the blocks together. You don't want all that bulk. I could, again, bring it up here. I don't want to cut these guys off too much. And then that gives me a little bit more comfortable distance to work with. You see, so you just have to play around with it. If you have odd shapes like this, especially, well, something like this, because it will work. Let's see, let me get my right angle in there. That one will work. So I would just put it down, make sure I had more than a 1/4 inch sticking out there, sew it down, trim this away, for example, and fold it back, as long as it fit. I've also found, this is something I've discovered while doing this, it doesn't hurt to have some big pieces like this, just for your corners, just to finish up your corners. So for example, you just put that down, you make sure you're going to have your 1/4 inch hanging over both sides, and then you flip it back. And let me say, your 1/4 inch is really important where you put that. It doesn't need to be a 1/4 inch here, where the paper, where this little intersection here, it doesn't need to be a 1/4 inch sticking out from there. It needs to be a 1/4 inch sticking out from your sewing line. So make sure that you've got, just make sure, just give yourself plenty of room. You know, there's no point in having it too short. Really, there isn't. This is supposed to be easy and fun, and you don't have to think a lot. So when you're starting to eyeball whether you've got enough hanging over on the edge or not, just don't do it. All right. Or it's up to you. Maybe you like playing with a seam ripper. I don't. So eventually, you're going to get this. Something that looks like this. Now, I saved this block. I wanted to cut this block down for you to show you that I'm sure some of you have already noticed this is pretty wonky here. To be honest, I think that this, I don't know how, must have been about 1.5 inches, maybe 1.25 inches, really. This one was really too thin to be in there. The problem with strings is they're really stretchy. So this is what started to happen here. So I kept this like this to show you that in a minute I'm going to trim this block down, and I've already taken a picture of it. And what I'm going to try to do, if I can figure out how, is just to put a picture of it like this and a picture right next to it after I've cut it down. I'm going to do that on camera anyway. I hope I have my light set up where nothing is going to glare in your eyes, and if it does, I promise it's just for this block, and I'll get better at camera angles and lighting angles and things like that. So when I cut the block down, I cut it out 1/4 inch, with the idea being that if I want to keep the paper in and sew these together as is, I can do that. I'm already thinking about a lot of ways to sew this, what I want to do with these blocks, and I can tell you now I'm probably going to be cutting them down anyway, but I'm just going to continue doing it like this, because at the end of the day, as long as they're all the same size and they all lie flat, you can do a lot of things with them. Sometimes if you have light fabric, it's really hard to see your paper. So again, this is just the way I'm doing it. Some people use muslin instead of newspaper. Some people, there are interfacing and other products out there that are kind of specifically for this. Some of them you can even leave in. You don't have to tear out. Some of them will tear very easily. You have to tear out. So now look at that. So I will take a photo of this before I forget. And I'll try to put them side to side so you can just see. It's magic. And you see here, it's not a big deal, especially once you put this into something where you quilt it, or maybe you put some crazy stitching in there or some hand quilting. No one's going to see it. And the thing I like about quilts is rarely, unless you go to somewhere where they're hanging up on display, rarely are they ever flat against a surface. Rarely do we ever look at a quilt like that. It's usually over someone's lap, or you know, over the couch, or folded up on the side of a chair, or you know, somebody's wrapped up in it. So you know, it's moving. So rarely is it going to be where somebody would go, oh, that really bothers me. I really, honestly, don't think anyone is ever going to pick up on this in my house. You know, if it's hanging up on display somewhere, maybe somebody with a very keen eye for straight lines will see that, but it's not going to bother me, and that's the most important thing. I'm really happy with it. I think it looks great. So that was everything. and I hope you found some of it useful. If you did, please let me know. Hit like, subscribe if you dare. It would help my channel, the channel, to grow a little bit, and it will give me a lot of encouragement to do these. I know the video isn't great. I know it's not perfect, or maybe even easy to watch. If there are real issues with this video, the lighting, the camera angles, or whatever, be kind, but let me know, please. I want to know. If I'm going to do this, I want it to be nice for everybody. Thank you for getting this far, and I really hope to see you again. And just have a nice day or a rest of the evening wherever you are, and I'll see you next time. Bye.